Welcome back, everyone. You're watching We Heart Therapy. I'm Dr. Anabelle Bugatti, and this is the special series EFT Talk. You probably recognize Dr. Scott Woolley. He's one of our beloved EFT trainers. He's out of San Diego and with TRI EFT. And he's going to talk to us today. So we did a video before about affairs, and we're here to do a second part since there's so much to develop about it. So today we're going to talk about how to set up when you have a couple that's having an affair, one person's having an affair and they need to disclose it, how to help them work towards disclosing it, and several other elements that go along with that, and how to confront one partner when it's discovered halfway through therapy that they're still having an affair. So we're just going to jump right in. So thanks again, Scott, for being with us. He's our affairs expert, by the way. So help us, when therapists need to help one of their partners reveal an affair with their partner. So they've said, I have an affair. May we have the no secrets policy, so we give them a few sessions to work towards it. That can be kind of or if they don't want to share it and they need to.
Right.
So how might we go about doing that?
Right. Well, and you've raised several kind of situations, right? Because one is when they know they need to do it, and they have, and they're reluctant or they don't know how to do it. And another one is, what if they don't want to? Or they say, well, I've stopped, or I'm not sure. Sometimes it's, I'm not sure which one I want, so I don't want to disclose anything because it's going to probably destroy this, etc. And so maybe we could talk about kind of each one of those. Okay. If people are saying, I don't know that I want because I don't know which one I want, that's a huge problem. Right? And it really means that the affair is not ended.
Right.
And it's still ongoing. And it ends up being a real problem if you're doing couples therapy because you're aware of that. And EFT is grounded in authenticity and
safety.
And we don't want to be enabling that.
And in my experience, you really just won't gain traction if, you have a couple and they're in stage one and things just don't seem to be shifting, and then you find out they're still engaged with the affair partner. It's like, oh, you're going to find the person doing the affair that they're just not engaging in the process as much, and you can't create safety if that other person isn't being involved in it.
And you can't collude in it, right? So absolutely. And so the real effort is the real push is to help them to and encourage them, and sometimes absolutely insist, if you're going to continue to do couples therapy, that they've got to get honest about it. And one way to approach that is to look at is to talk about the fact that affairs, because they involve lots and lots of secrecy, and they typically involve a very thin kind of aspect of life. Okay, it's sneaking around.
It's like going to Disneyland, right? They're going off, they're having fun, and they're likely to idealize the affair relationship because, I fight with my wife when we're at home and it's terrible, but when I'm with my affair partner, but of course they're having dinner, they're going out for fun places, and it's not everyday life. They're not paying bills, changing dirty diapers. So of course, when you escape to fantasy land, it's going to be fun.
That's exactly right. And helping people understand they're comparing fantasy to real life. Or another way of looking at that is they're comparing a very tiny, slim slice of life, right?
Just the best part.
Right, except it's maybe not the best part, okay?
They think it's the best part.
They may think it's a part that is being fed by all sorts of hormones and excitement and a sense of power oftentimes that comes with deception, and it can be an escape from other things in their life, and helping them understand that isn't really a full life. It's kind of like eating frosting on a cake only, and not eating a whole meal.
Right.
Okay? And if all you eat is frosting, you are going to get sick. It may taste good in the moment.
That's right.
But you're going to get sick.
And maybe it'll take away your hunger pang for the moment, but eventually it's going to come back. And you're not going to be, fulfilled or satiated long term.
That's exactly right. And so people oftentimes have this fantasy that if I choose the other person that I'm having the affair with, it's going to be like that all the time. And of course it's not.
That's right.
Because they have to figure out how to build a life together if they're going to be together.
And oftentimes those couples end up in counseling. I've had so many couples come in that started out as affair partners. And then there's that whole other layer. Well, we met while you were cheating on your spouse with me, so how do I know that you won't do that to me too?
Oh, yes, and absolutely. And that fear is going to exist, throughout. And, people can develop trust in the primary relationship, or if they've now left that person and gone with the person that they cheated with. It just is hard, and it takes time and energy, and that's kind of a bigger process in terms of helping rebuild trust and create trust. Sometimes there isn't trust.
That's
it's not rebuilding it, you're building it. But going back to helping somebody understand that they have to, this is real life versus fantasy world, really. I like that way of thinking about it, or eating frosting as opposed to the whole meal. And you may not like the current meal, but that doesn't mean it can't be changed. It doesn't mean you don't need it.
That's right.
Okay. So once you get a person to the idea that they need to, and it's important to disclose, okay, for lots and lots of reasons. When I do trainings, we talk about a lot of reasons why you'd want to disclose, but then people have very real fears about doing it.
Well, yeah, because, the minute I turn and tell my wife I've been having an affair on her, she's going to hit the fan, and
she's going to be angry. She's going to tell the whole world.
She won't forgive
me. Facebook.
Me.
She's going to, she's going to shame me in front of the children, and I'm going to lose my job, and there's all sorts of fears that end up going along with that. Okay.
So how do you help? Because also you have to be prepared to help the partner who's going to be hearing this, because it's going to be experienced as an attachment injury likely in session. And so you have to help the person take that risk to share, and knowing that it's going to hurt the other person, and help the hurt person from going off the deep end, like, let's go smear you all over the planet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so one of the things you do is you don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
That's right.
We don't know. Okay. I do reassure people and say, listen, I've helped lots of people through this process, and it is scary, but I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be working with your partner. I'm going to be working with him or her and working on containing it. And one of the things I'm going to emphasize is no public disclosures at this point. Let's process. Let's figure out how to say, I know it feels dangerous, but we have got to figure out how to not make this even worse.
Right.
And that means no big decisions, no big public disclosures, and then sometimes I'm very specific. Do you have any worries? A lot of times people don't. I mean, the person who had the affair is going to be scared that their partner's going to do that, and usually that's the last thing the partner wants to do. The person who was cheated upon, and consequently, it's about fears. And then he will never love me. How could they accept me, etc. So we talk through typical scenarios. I tell them that most of the time that the partner, it's not nearly as bad. Okay. One of the things I do tell them is that it's absolutely important. Most people, because they have lots of shame around this, is they will minimize it.
That's right.
Or they won't tell the full extent.
That's right.
Right.
It's not a big deal. It just was a couple texts, a few flirtations.
Right. We didn't do anything else. We didn't have sex. We didn't do this or that. There was only one time.
Yeah.
I've heard that one. It was only one time.
Right.
We don't have any more contact when they do. I never loved her. I never loved him. And I really encourage people to, you have to see how your partner's responding, but to really, this isn't going to heal unless you get completely open and honest. Okay? Now, I also encourage them not to blame. Okay? Because you cannot make somebody have an affair.
That's right.
You can't do that. I mean, I have yet to hear anybody that says, if you don't have an affair, I'm going to kill you. Okay?
That's right.
I mean, it's not, people aren't forced. Okay? You can make it easier or harder. In bad relationships, where there's a lot of destructive, and it certainly can be easier.
And you have the desperate pleas. If you don't give me more attention, I'm going to go cheat on you.
Yes, and sometimes there's those kind of, come and get me, or sometimes retaliatory. There's a variety of different types that, we talked about it last time, maybe. And I go into those in detail in my presentations on this. But it is... A lot of times people they feel bad about what they've done and they want to blame the other person. And in the end, people make their own decisions. And this is not about saying you're a bad guy, you're a good person, whatever. It's not about giving people a pass. It just is.
Right.
Okay? And so that whole level as to who to blame is the wrong level.
Right.
Okay? It's just the wrong... People get all caught up in, is the affair person bad or not, or whatever. And I think that's the completely wrong level to look at.
That's part of the reactive part of the affair, is trying to make sense of how this happened. What do they got that I don't? How could this have happened? How do I know you're never going to turn to somebody? Because again, you must have been missing something, or they must have had something more, and now I'm walking around worried about it, and they go into detective mode and they want to know all about this and all the details, and and it's kind of that obsessive part, because they never thought this would happen, and now it has.
They never thought it would happen. It would be it's a trauma for them, and there are ways. I mean, that we could probably do a whole podcast on how to help people once the disclosure has happened.
Right.
And particularly people who get caught obsessing with details.
Right.
I do tell people before, if I can, before the disclosure, that if you only disclose 70 or 80 or 90%, what's going to happen is your partner's much more likely to get obsessed if more dribbles out. The dribble out, which lots of people do,
is more traumatizing almost.
It is more traumatizing.
Because it's like, okay, I thought everything was out, and then another thing comes out, and then another thing comes out, and it's just the constant... Well, now I feel like I can never trust you, because every time I relax and put my guard down, another thing comes in. So, now I can't just trust you at all. And that's scary.
Yeah. Another thing I do with people in preparing them is that I say, you have got to focus on your partner's pain. And you've got to see that pain as being about how important you are, or anger, or resentment, whatever they are. The fact that they're impacted by this is about how important you are, not about how bad you are.
That's a really great reframe.
Yeah, and it's really important. Even if they say you're a horrible, terrible person, etc.
Right.
The reason they're getting into that kind of reactive stuff is that
they're so hurt by it.
They're so hurt, and the reason they're hurt is because they love. Okay? If somebody doesn't really love somebody, like you've had an affair, the other person may say, great.
Yeah.
Now we can get a divorce and I can blame you. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Right?
That's exactly the point, is the opposite of love isn't hate. Actually, you have to love someone to hate them. It's indifference.
Right. And if somebody's truly indifferent, then they don't really care.
They're
if
detached.
The person gets upset, if they get hurt, they get angry, etc.
It's because they care.
It's because they care. And getting the person to remember that, front loading that, okay, and it
sets that up because it makes that process highly predictable, which is part of where the safety comes into. And they need to know what to expect, that their partner is going to be in a lot of pain. And if you kind of equip them to go into that pain and say, if you deal with their pain and you see it as how much they love you and care about you, it really changes things, I think. That's really good.
Yeah. It's really important. And then I think another thing is that people think, he or she will never get over this. I will always be branded as the cheater. And I really try to kind of focus on the fact that actually people do. And we've got some good research on that. You know, people do heal. They do trust there's a process they have to go through.
And it's not an overnight kind of thing. You know, there's a lot of that anxiety. Why can't my partner just get over it? It's been 6 months. It's been a year. Why aren't they over it?
But it's really helpful to help the person who's disclosing it to understand what is going to lead to it being healed. And one of the things that is going to help lead to it is if that person who's disclosing to their partner can empathize and focus on their partner's feeling and express remorse, both over what they did, of course, but also express remorse over the pain that their partner's going through. And the hurt.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing, okay? And this really kind of previews the longer process of healing. Because in the affair, there's several reasons why affairs hurt and are destructive and are dangerous, okay? They really can be very dangerous on lots of levels. But fundamentally, at a very fundamental level, when somebody's off having an affair, whether that is emotional, physical, both, which is the worst, okay, when it's both, right? When that's happening, it's like you are with him or her. You're with him. You're not with me. This that was sacred in our relationship, that was something special to us, now you've gone outside, right? What does that mean about me? What does that mean about us? Fundamentally, the pain is around disconnection and betrayal, okay? Which means the antidote is going to be around connection. And when the pain comes on, people feel so oftentimes alone in the pain. It is devastating. They realize they have been alone. Their understanding of their history in the relationship, they know is now faulty.
Yeah.
And so then there's oftentimes this experience of, I don't know what is true or not, or who you are, those kinds of things. Again, not all, but usually this is the case, right? And consequently, from the very beginning, thinking about what helps heal it, one of the things that's going to help heal it is to get an honest, coherent narrative or understanding of what really went on. Right. So that the understanding of the history, and history lives in the present, right? That the understanding of the history is going to be corrected and be accurate. And then the other big one is that as the injured partner goes through the pain and the anguish, if this time, and the other partners are there with them and is compassionate and engaged, it's the opposite of what was happening in the affair.
That's right. And often I find, kind of what I've related is if they're able to go into their partner's pain and be with them in that place, they're also able to grieve some of their own pain that comes along with the shame of, how could I hurt my spouse in this way? Often, for people who have had an affair, it's a big value conflict just for themselves. It's something that's out of character.
Yeah, they valid. I've heard people say, I never thought I would do this.
Yeah.
I always used to look down on people that did this.
Yeah.
And now I've done it.
Yeah, and when they can, share remorse with their partner, not only are they meeting their partner in their pain, which helps them feel good, but then they can start to grieve their own, and it's like we're grieving together.
Yeah.
And that can be really helpful.
That can be helpful. Another thing that we talk about, because one of the things that's helpful, again, is to think about all possible responses. So one of the common things is when an affair has been disclosed, is that the other person doesn't want to talk with the injured. It's like so painful to even look or talk about it. It's like they need some time to grieve. And I try to remind people, you have been dealing with the pain of this for some time. You've been thinking about it, you know it. This is brand new information for your partner. Your partner doesn't know this. And not always. Sometimes they do. And sometimes I've had people say, thank you. Thank you for telling me this. Maybe now we can heal our marriage. Okay. Many years ago, I had a woman say that in so much compassion, but she already knew.
Right.
She already knew. But some people, particularly if it comes as a kind of a bolt from the blue, it's like, oh my, I don't know what to think. I don't know how to organize this, etc. And we as therapists really have to support that, understand it. People may not be ready for any kind of empathy from their partner. They may not be ready for that. They may be angry. Some people go into anger, and that's okay. Okay. One of the important things that we have to be able to do is, as therapists, and ultimately we need to be able to get our clients to do that, is to be okay with our partner's emotions, whether that be anger, whether that be deep pain, whether that be fear, etc. I had if I can just give a little antidote, this didn't involve an affair, but I had a lady in another country that I worked with who had really she had been depressed, she had been unintentionally abandoned by her husband, and she had lots and lots of pain. And as she opened up in therapy, in one of these moments, she turned to her, and she's got tears streaming down her face, and she's and her husband's really open and engaged, right? And her husband's wanting to know, what can I do? And her response was, don't be afraid of my pain. I'm not afraid of my pain. And I don't want you to be afraid of it. I need you to be with me. So please don't be afraid of it. I just thought that was so beautiful. Yeah. It's like, I'm not afraid of my pain. I'm not afraid of my pain. I need you to not be afraid of my pain. Okay? And we as therapists also need to not be afraid of people's pain or their anger. People get angry because they're in pain, or they're scared, or they're hurt. But in an EFT, we talk about anger as a secondary reactive emotion. But the fact of the matter is anger is also really powerful. It can be destructive. It can be helpful depending on the situation. If I don't know, if there's a fire and I'm really angry because I'm scared I'm going to lose my family, it might motivate me to kind of get them all out and brave the flames, right? So it's not that it's always it's like it depends what you do with it, right? Right. But we have to be able to be comfortable with it and knowing, and a lot of times partners are not, okay, but we as therapists must be able to handle it, support people, etc. I find that in the disclosure process, it's very helpful to kind of go slow, and when things speed up, we have to be there oftentimes, because again, oftentimes they don't want to be supported by their partner right now, because it's like, you did this, they don't want that. So they need us as therapists to support them, help them, and help regulate them, co-regulate them.
What can we kind of do in those moments? So let's just say, we go into this session and there's something your partner needs to share with you, and this can be hard and painful, and so they share it, and then the other partner goes ballistic. What can we do in those moments to sort of lean in and help them regulate?
What we do, okay, so in general, Sue talks about this, and I think it's really important. When people feel heard, they calm down. So if somebody goes ballistic, and that happens sometimes, they'll yell and scream at the top of their lungs. Seems like I had that happen recently in my own practice. Thinking, what are the other therapists next door thinking about this? Actually, in the moment, you're thinking about, what do I do, right? But if that happens, the key is you have to engage with them. Get their eye contact. Okay, try to get their eye contact. You can tell them, I need you to stop. I need you to slow down. Okay, sometimes people are so dysregulated, so much pain. The best thing you can do is help them feel heard. And I know this is upsetting. This is horrible. By the way, we don't want to say, I know how this feels.
Right.
Okay.
Don't say that.
Right. Because we don't know for sure. And even if we do, we don't know that we do.
That's right.
Right? And but we can say, I know that it's painful.
Yeah.
Because we do know it's painful. That doesn't mean you know
how
what
it feels.
It's like.
That's
or
right.
how it feels. Okay. But you could say, this is painful. I see the anger. This is like your whole world. Just helping people describe their experience. When people can label emotions, then their brain calms down, right? So helping them, co-regulating them.
Okay. So really kind of organizing their emotions and describe it and put words to it and be able to be heard can help them really come down from a 10 to maybe at least a 5.
And if somebody is like so angry they want to leave, I typically would have the other partner leave and go out to the waiting room for a few minutes rather than having them leave. Because if the angry person is super angry, I don't want them leaving, going off driving, going off,
destroying property
because they're enraged. I don't want to do that. I want to be with them.
Right.
And the other partner usually is scared, but usually they can, you have to exercise clinical judgment. But having them sit in another room.
That's a really good thought. I don't think a lot of us knew that, to have the angry person stay and have the other partner go. That's a really good thought. Man, why aren't they teaching us this stuff in school?
Yeah, well, it's just helpful, and you always have to exercise clinical judgment.
That's right.
The angry person, their whole world's just been rocked.
That's right.
They need somebody to be with them.
That's right.
Okay?
That's right.
They need that, and getting the other person away, because that other person at the moment is going to be the stimulus. How could you do this? They keep looking, how could you do this? And they're just going to become more upset.
That's right.
Having them off and then you staying with them, helping them understand that this can be understood, it can be sorted through. We're not going to do it in one session. Okay? The most important thing is we've got to have time to do it.
That's right.
You do, as a therapist, need to make sure that people are not homicidal or suicidal.
That's right.
Okay, and you need to assess for that when you get that kind of reactive, response. Make sure that people are okay. Develop safety plans if needed. But the biggest thing is that you are there as somebody who cares, who's compassionate.
That's right.
And
You're
hearing
base.
them. You're a secure base. Again, as Sue says, when people feel heard, they calm down.
That's right. Right. Okay. So you can meet them kind of in that place of their anger, and you don't want to go into I get that this is so hard, when they're like, I see the anger right here, right now. I get that this is...
And you have a right to be angry.
Yeah.
You have a right to be angry.
Yeah, your anger makes a lot of sense.
One of the most instructive sessions I ever saw Sue do, and this is not one that's been released because the couple didn't want it released, but there was a heterosexual married couple, and the woman was really, 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 really angry, and she was isolated, and she was really angry. And, as at the beginning of the session, she was angry, and Sue, I watched, she was in her anger for at least a half an hour or longer during this, maybe 40 minutes of the session. Sue just kept listening and validating, and not validating necessarily that the way she was seeing things is correct, but that there's a reason why she feels angry. It makes sense that she feels angry, that it's been so hard, etc. Sue just stayed with anger for probably 30 or 40 minutes. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Until finally, she went down into her pain and sorrow and sadness. And then she was able to work with that and organize the whole thing, right? And the husband was sitting there the whole time, and he was quiet and whatnot. But the important thing about that is that you can stay with anger. You don't want to heighten anger, but you can stay with it. You can organize it, and
when you meet it, you can get it to shift. You're not, we don't want to fan the flames, but if you're helping them feel heard, it's not going to go that other way. It's going to go down.
And sometimes therapists are afraid of anger.
And a lot of times, and
I understand. And a lot of times with anger, I'm looking at, okay, how do we get underneath it? Because I know something's underneath it.
Yeah.
And it's not
It's not fun to be angry, by the way.
That's right.
Nobody likes
It's
that.
exhausting, too.
It's exhausting.
It takes a
right?
lot of energy.
So my perspective on this is, this person doesn't want to be angry,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so I do want to lead them out, but I don't want to deny them. I want to see them.
They need to be heard in their place of anger.
Exactly. And if people are not heard in their place of anger, then they're not going to risk sharing their fears, their hurt, their sadness, their pain.
Yeah, they won't go underneath it.
They won't go underneath it.
Yeah.
You got to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Then you can get underneath.
Yeah, that's great. So I hear you saying when it comes to helping with the disclosure, you're really setting up the partner who committed the affair. You're really letting them know what to expect and to really be prepared for the partner to be in a lot of pain and to possibly have mixed reactions, and to be able to meet their partner in their place of pain and be able to tolerate that. And the more they can meet them there and show empathy and remorse, the better the healing process will go. But also in terms of the partner who's hearing that their spouse or their partner's just had an affair, being able to meet them in their place of anger and being able to organize and help them describe and articulate, give a voice to where they're at, can help calm their nervous system and help them go from maybe like a 10 down to, a 5 or maybe lower. And if they feel so angry that they want to leave, your suggestion is to have the other partner leave and have the angry person stay, because they really need to not be alone. They need to have someone there for them, and we're the safe base, and we can process with them, and again just go back into organizing and making sense and describing their anger and validating that anger, and helping them to hopefully make more sense and feel heard. That's an important part. Now, on the other hand, what if you have a partner who it's been known that they've had an affair, but they've been telling you, the therapist and their spouse, that they've stopped the affair, and then you find out partway through that, oh, no, in fact, it hasn't. And I know sometimes this happens. This is part of the double bind of having a no secrets policy, is when, the person who's having the affair won't disclose it to you that it's still going on because they know of the no secrets and you're going to tell my spouse. So they keep it, and then it comes out, and you, the therapist, also feel betrayed because maybe you've asked them in individual therapy, is this still going on? Is this what you want? And no, it's fine, no big deal, and then you find out they've been doing it all along. How do you confront that? What do you do with that when that happens?
Right. Some of the most difficult, pain-racked, devastating affairs that I've ever worked with have had that scenario where the person may have disclosed and then they say they've ended it, but they haven't really.
Yeah.
Okay? Let me talk about preventing that for a minute, and then I want to talk about what to do with it.
That's great.
Okay? And I do think, anyway, let's do that, because preventing it, one of the things I've learned, sometimes through sad experience, is that there is value, particularly if this was an ongoing affair for some time. Or if there's a lot of compulsive, short ones even, is to check in alone, maybe for 10 minutes, with the person who is having the affair, and just saying, now, have you really stopped all contact? Or has anything been happening? Where are you going in your mind? Just seeing what we can do to find out. Because if it's still going on, the other partner needs to know. And
there might be flags there too, because, as I was mentioning to Scott earlier, I actually had this happening. And, doing those individual sessions, checking in, some of the red flags are, especially if this affair happened with like a coworker or colleague,
they still work together.
Yeah, that they're still in contact, even if they're minimizing and saying, oh, it's really only for work stuff. It's not but they're not being transparent with their spouse about when the contact occurs. They're still hiding their phone, still engaging in behaviors that are indicative that they might still be in the affair. These are some things you want to watch out for, that they might not be telling you the whole truth, but maybe they're not ready to tell you the whole truth. And when you figure out that something doesn't add up, what can you do in that case? What can you say to the client when you say, this really doesn't feel like this is fully ended?
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, saying that in private and just say something feels like it's not there. I think you say exactly that. In the end,
it's their choice.
It's their choice, and they're going to lie or they're not going to lie.
That's right.
Okay?
And they could deny right through their teeth.
But what you can do is you can kind of lay out the consequences, okay? And talk about, one of the things that may have led to this is the secrets, right? And what's going to heal this is openness. And if there isn't openness, it's going to continue to fester. And there's still danger for you and your spouse.
Right.
And so I think that just kind of helping them, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right?
That's true.
So I think that we do everything we can, but staying up on that. Sometimes I wish that I had checked in more often when I found that has happened.
Yeah.
But once it does happen, I mean, the most destructive things that I've seen happen have been under that circumstances.
Right. And sometimes then the partner who's been cheated on is much less willing to stay in the marriage and work on it. They're like, I was willing to forgive you the first time, but now that you kept lying to me, and
the second time and the third time, but now we're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And unfortunately, that's a consequence. And, in the case with, when this has happened with my own clients, I've, had to pull them apart and do individuals and let them know that this might be the consequence of this coming out. And, also let them know that given that this bomb just exploded again, that it's going to be impossible to create safety and advance the couple's work if this affair is still going on.
If the affair is still going on, that's exactly right. And a lot of times people, you've got to get underneath and figure out what's driving this, right? In fact, for real healing to occur, you've got to figure out what's driving it, because you've got to have a plan to prevent it in the future.
Well, and EFT is really good at that. What I found with these couples is they're kind of doing the hedging their bets. I don't really know if my partner is going to change, and so until I'm more sure, I'm going to secretly hang on to my affair.
Yeah, it's like, I think Sue referred to this as kind of the hedge fund approach. It's like, I'm going to kind of, hedge my bets, right?
Yeah.
That if it doesn't work here, I'm going to go over to here.
Yeah.
The problem with that, I had one guy that had done that, and he said, once it finally came out, I was really struggling with him to get him to be fully engaged in therapy. And he said, well, I thought, I don't know whether this is going to work out or not. And I said, yeah, but you're guaranteeing that your marriage isn't going to work.
That's right. That's right.
And therapy can't work.
That's right.
No wonder I haven't had a hard time getting you open.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
It doesn't. It doesn't work. You're not giving your marriage a chance.
And that's the truth consequence, is they're waiting for their marriage to change to see if something will be different, but because they're still engaging in the affair, not in therapy, nothing can be different. And they're caught in the cycle. And that's often, when somebody's had an affair and you keep getting caught in this gridlock and you see this kind of suspicious behavior going on, it's probably a good sign that the affair might not be fully over and they're not ready to share it. Because if you're not getting that person to engage, they have one foot here and one foot there, and they're not fully committed to either. And that will show up in your work, where you'll feel stuck, and it's like, why isn't this engaging? Why aren't we getting farther? Why are we kind of at a stalemate? We're stuck. We're stuck here. Yeah. So,
no, exactly right. And when I've been stuck on those things, there's always some kind of a secret. There's shame. There's something underneath.
Although I have to say, I would rather be, if when it comes to no secrets policy, again, that's the double bind, is sometimes the client does keep the secret. But I would rather be on the one who is also lied to than be the one who's on the colluding part. It's much safer, even though it does still, even to us as a therapist, feels a little bit of a betrayal, right? You're supposed to be honest. We're supposed to, put everything on the table. I'm here to help you, and yet you're keeping a secret from me. You're lying to me. How can I help you if you're lying to me? But, take an empathic approach. And that's, kind of how I entered into it. Okay, so this bomb went off. What are we going to do with this now?
Yep.
Don't bolt in there with, how could you lie to me? You told me this was over. And
as a therapist, we can't do that.
That's right.
Because we at times feel
That's right.
betrayed.
Yeah.
And we have been to a degree.
Right.
But nothing compared to what the partner's
That's
going
right.
through. Because
That's
we're
right.
not married to the person, right?
That's
We're
right.
not in a committed relationship.
That's right.
But we do feel that. And it's really important to recognize
That's
this
right.
is not about me
That's
as
right.
therapists.
That's right.
This is about them.
Yes.
And the most powerful thing I can do is get curious.
That's right.
I just need to there's a reason why this happened. Okay? And I got to get curious about why it happened. And my job is to help it not happen.
That's right.
Which means I need to understand it.
That's
so
right.
it's like, okay, let's learn from this.
That's right.
And
lay out the consequences. If we can't be honest and transparent, then our couples work just won't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And if that ends up being the case, then we, if we stay curious, if we stay interested, if we're trying to understand it, we're trying to figure out how to prevent it, trying to figure out how to deal with the consequences of this and help them, we then don't focus on ourselves, and then we don't get, we don't personalize it.
That's right.
Which is actually really important because it's not about us.
That's right. It's not about us. It's about, again, resistance in EFT is all about, we've asked the client to do something they're not ready to do. And in this case, they weren't ready to surrender the affair. And they weren't ready to tell us.
And so I got to get curious about why and how to help them get fully open and honest.
That's right.
I think there's another piece here as we're kind of talking about this that I'm kind of thinking is really important. With all of this, we have to remember that people can change. They don't always do it, but they can.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have a job.
That's right. And they do. People oftentimes do, right? Which is one of the reasons we have a job, right? And healing can happen when there are, Sue talks about this, when there's been even serious betrayals, healing can happen.
That's right.
We understand that process in EFT. There's been some really cool process research about how couples do heal. Okay, with affairs specifically, one of my students and I it was her dissertation actually on how affairs heal or what some of the factors are, and showing that there are lots of relationships where they have healed, and we also know there's certain specific things that must happen. We don't always lay those out at the beginning because usually we got to be with people where they are.
Sure.
But one of the things that is important, and this is important for us to do with our clients, it's also important for us to do with us, okay? Because our own experiences can have an impact on this. We need to believe, and we also need to give calm assurance that this can be understood, this can heal, and things can improve dramatically.
That's right.
And some couples use this as a way of really fixing old problems in their relationship.
That's right.
The relationship may end up being better than it ever was.
Sometimes the affair is a catalyst for bigger and better change.
Right.
It's a bad catalyst.
It's a horrible catalyst.
Yeah.
And I would, never ever recommend that.
Oh, of course not.
And I've heard people do that, and it's like, no, don't do that.
But if you're given a lemon, make something sweet out of it.
That's right. That's exactly right. And sometimes it's like I've heard people justify their affairs, which is super important. Get them keep them from doing that.
When we're working with the affair, and you've said this in our last video, we want to validate the emotions, the attachment, fears, needs, longings behind the affair, not the behavior of the affair. Big difference.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. So, there are other ways of dealing with problems in a marriage or a relationship.
Absolutely.
Besides having an affair.
That's right.
Okay? But we are where we are, right? And so if there has been an affair, then you still can fix this relationship. And it has the potential to be better than it ever was, which is true for all relationships, really.
And I think saying that out loud, when I hear you say that out loud, that you know, this is where we are at, and if we really focus on healing and work through all the problems, this could be better than it ever was. And to me, that sounds really beautiful and really hopeful. And if I was the client sitting in that chair, I would feel so much better walking out of that session.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. What a great talk. And, you know, Scott, so you have trainings that you do on affairs, and folks around the globe actually can contact you and schedule you to come out and do affairs training. Can you tell them a little bit more about what you do, what your workshops are?
Yes, yeah. I do either 1 day or 2 day workshops. I prefer to do 2 days because then you can get really into depth, right? Oftentimes that's harder to logistically to make happen, so I do a 1 day version of that. And I often, if I have 2 days, I will do a live, typically with an affair couple, and that is oftentimes very helpful for people. I really go into depth about affairs and how some of the myths around affairs. It's all EFT attachment based, okay? But we also focus on kind of different types of affairs, okay? In my own research with me and my colleagues, we have identified kind of 7 different patterns of that we see based on motivation.
Right.
There are different type pathologies, and the topologies are at times based on all sorts of different things. Okay, mine is based on emotion, or excuse me, on motives, and that's an important thing because you got to understand why it happened in order to prevent it from happening again, and it helps in the creation of the secure narrative which you're eventually going to be creating. We go through the different types. We go through how to assess. We go through how to help. Some of the things we've talked about today, and that is how to help somebody disclose, how to handle that first session if it's being disclosed. I always encourage them to disclose in session, not out of session. Okay, we talk about a variety of safety things. Then we go into the healing process. And we talk about using EFT with affairs, and EFT is such a great model for affairs. I mean, it really helps us get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
And at times we discuss people's cases and those kinds of things, depending on the amount of time we have. And anyway, people have been really happy with it. They tend to really like it, and I'm always trying to incorporate the latest research. And anyway.
So how do people find you? Do you have a website? Do you have an email?
I do. Yes, I do. I have a website. It's Dr. Scott Woolley, and there are 2 L's in Woolley.
Okay.
Woolley. My email, maybe you could post this.
Is it Dr. Scott Woolley at just drscottwoolley.com?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that he looks at that.
If you Google my name, sometimes my name is Scott R. Woolley.
Well, if you can send it to me, then I'm going to post it in the description for this video along with your email. And there's some other pieces, some other nuggets discussed in this video that you will find in some of my other videos, such as repairing attachment injuries I have with both Leanne Campbell and Lori Brubaker, as well as getting curiosity and empathy in EFT with Jim Thomas. So check out those other videos. And look up Dr. Scott Woolley and have him come to your area to do a training about affairs. He is amazing. His workshops are amazing. Really, they are not to be missed. So make sure that you check them out. Make sure that you guys subscribe and stay tuned because more episodes are on the way.